Welcome to Cross Border Interviews. This is the show where we dive into the insights of municipal political leaders from across Canada. Now, our mission on this show is quite simple. It is to shine a light on the dedicated individuals who day in and day out work around the council table to shape the communities that we call home. And for this edition of the show, we are heading to MacKenzie County, Alberta, where we are speaking with Councillor Cameron Cardinal. MacKenzie County is Alberta's largest county. Located in the northwestern corner of the province, approximately 700 kilometers from Edmonton. The county offers a mix of flat arable land with boreal forests, thus accounting for active agriculture, forestry, and tourism industries which drive the economies of the county's three hamlets: Fort Vermilion, Crete, and Zama City. MacKenzie County has experienced significant growth since 1998, and the trend is continuing as many businesses and newcomers recognize the unique lifestyle and employment opportunities the county provides. This is Cross Border Interviews. In the heart of every thriving community lies a well-crafted strategic plan. But crafting such a plan requires expertise, experience, and a deep understanding of local needs. Enter Strategic Steps, your partner in municipal strategic planning. Strategic Steps' team of experts have years of experience in municipal administration. At Strategic Steps, they just don't develop plans. They co-create homegrown strategies tailored to your unique community. They listen, they collaborate, they empower your community to thrive. Contact Strategic Steps today and take the first step towards a brighter future for your municipality. Call Strategic Steps at 780-416-9255 or visit strategicsteps.ca to get started. Councillor, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about yourself and talking about MacKenzie County in northwestern Alberta. Before we talk about the county, before we talk about the role, let's get to know the man behind the persona of councillor for a few minutes. And I've gone to start with a simplistic question, but it's one that I've asked over and over on this show because it gets me to know you a little bit. Where does your sense of duty to serve your community come from, Cameron?
Well, thank you for having me on. I actually got to say shout out to my friend and colleague, Lisa Wardley. She's the one that kind of put me up to this and said I should reach out and get myself on your show. And I saw a few of your interviews, and I think you're doing a great thing. And I think municipal politics is really important. And getting different perspectives across our country is great for the people that we represent. And as far as my role and duty as a councillor, well, I gotta start from the beginning, I guess. I never ever wanted to be a councillor, or I hated politics. I'm still not a big fan of politics. I don't call myself a politician. I call myself a community leader because I believe there's a difference. In high school, social studies was my worst subject. I did not like talking about government or any policies or anything like that. And 51% in social studies was good enough for me. Get me out the door and let's see how it goes. But being, like I said, a community leader, you're looked upon to, I guess, step outside your comfort zone in regards to the people you represent. Everybody has their own different needs and wants, and everybody's got an idea of what a perfect world should be. And everybody's perfect world is their home, and we do our best to try to make that as comfortable as we can for them. My role started as I was in nonprofit groups, sat on a couple of nonprofit boards, and grew my knowledge from there, I guess, and soon found out that I was comfortable speaking in front of a lot of people, and I used that skill. And the reason I actually ran for councillor is I was kind of upset with my neighbor, and I went to
Sorry,
my
I'm not trying to laugh openly about that, but that's the best origin story of a municipal community leader I've ever heard. I was upset with my neighbor. Sorry, continue, Cameron.
Yeah, I was, and it's a true story. And I was upset with my neighbor, and I went to my counselor, and he thought it was a big joke. Why I was upset, and I went home that's right after our little brief encounter, and I told my wife, I said, I'm running for council. If we're going to be represented like that, I think I could do a little bit better job than that. And yeah, I've been here since 2017, so I'm into my third term.
So, how does a self described guy from northwestern Alberta who doesn't like politics survive three terms, two terms, and now on to his third term as a municipal councillor? It must be something in the water up there because I know me, if I don't like something, I end it within like 2 minutes of not liking it, but it seems like it has grown on you.
Well, I shouldn't say I don't like. I enjoy my job. I love my job actually because I get a lot of satisfaction out of seeing people have a problem and then coming up with working with them and working with my council uh, and administration to come up with a solution. And when we come up with solutions, it's a big win for me. And if that's politics, then I am actually enjoying it quite a bit.
But I can imagine after now almost, let's say, 9 years on council, 8 years as a counselor, and then just entering into your ninth year now, you've probably come to the realization while you want to solve issues for people, you can't solve everyone's issue because there's things that the municipality just can't do. How do you ensure that you give the best representation to the people of your community, understanding that there is limitations that you have in your role as a counselor?
Well, you know, uh, I was asked this question a little while ago at our RMA convention from a brand new counselor. He was asking for advice, and I said, the best thing you can do for the people you represent is just don't lie. Just tell them the truth. Like my friend Lisa Worley always says, rip that band-aid off real fast, and you know, and get to the problem and work to finding a solution. I There's very few things that are impossible to accomplish within reason, but if you don't try, yeah, it's impossible to get it done. I always believe there's there might be a roadblock, there might be 100 roadblocks, but there's always a path around them, and you just got to work, put your head together. There's a lot of sleepless nights thinking about certain things and certain issues, and it might take a while. You can't get things done overnight. We all know government works at a snail's pace because there's 1,000 different policies that basically protect one thing, and that's liability. And if we can work around all that, there's very few things that are impossible.
Do you find your I hate to blanket this question, the blanket statement question, but I think I have to a little bit. How often do you find when you're dealing with residents, they just want the unabashful truth, even if it means that they're going to be upset. They want you to be truthful with them because let's just call a spade here. Politicians don't have the best uh, favorability rating right now. And when you're honest with them, even if it's going to upset them, they'd rather you be honest than drag them along and lie to them and then get their hopes up for 2 years down the line when you say, actually, 2 years ago, we were thinking about it, but we actually weren't. How often do you find yourself just needing to be truthful because that's what people want in today's age?
You know, uh, during the flood of 2020 in Fort Vermilion, we flooded, quite severely. Um, People wanted answers right now, and the worst thing you could tell somebody is, "I don't know," and then just leave them. Um, Let them know that you don't actually know. But if you do know, and the truth hurts, you gotta spit it out. You just have to, um, as nice as you can. Don't be upset with them because nothing gets you get two rockheads bouncing against each other, nothing gets accomplished. So yeah, just spit it out and be honest and say, look, there's not a whole lot we can do about this right now, but we'll try our best.
And on the flip side of that, after 2 full terms in office, I can imagine you've come to the realization you're never going to please 100% of the people of your community. And you're never going to please 100% of the people with the decisions you make around that council table. Because if you walk outside right now, I'm looking at the screens for those who are listening to this. The counselor is in his car parked by the side of the river, and it's gray overcast. But if you go outside right now and say it's gray overcast to 100 people, they're going to say, no, it's a little bit white, might be a little bit blue. So not everyone's going to agree on anything. How do you then make those tough decisions, knowing that 100% of the people are never going to be in favor, but at the end of the day, you still have to be truthful about why you voted the way you did?
What I and that it has to be do with knowing your community. Like I was born and raised in Fort Vermilion. I've lived here my whole life. Fort Vermilion is, it's arguably the oldest community in Alberta. Our motto is where Alberta began, but we also share that with Fort Chipewyan. And it depends on what side of the province you're on. But knowing the history of your community, not just the written history, but the cultural history, knowing your neighbors, knowing who's upset with who, uh, knowing the needs of certain neighborhoods and I guess classes, if you want to call it, of people. Um, if you know your people like the back of your hand, the majority of the people in Fort Vermilion, there's 780 people live here. I probably know about 80% on a first name basis. So if you know the people, you know the people that you're going to upset, and you try to choose the path that's going to upset the least amount of people or affect the least amount of people, depending on what you're arguing against or advocating for.
Because, again, blanket statement time, and I hate to do it on the show, but I do it enough, so I have to stop saying I hate doing it because I do it a lot. But with knowing so many people, and particularly in Fort Vermilion, which I've had the pleasure of visiting, and it's probably one of the most beautiful scenic riverfronts that I've ever been to in Alberta. I think it
Oh,
is a
thank you.
gem. It's a hidden gem in this province that more people need to go see, and that's just me being me. Plus, if I'm remembering correctly, one of the best grocery stores, because when I was in there, there was a really cheap grocery prices at that time when I was there a few years ago. Might not be now, but when I was there, it was really good. So when we look at the issues that you're facing, the challenges you're facing, and this is me saying this, not the counselor. For anyone who's about to send nasty emails, please send them to me because this is Chris Brown saying this. I'm finding more and more that people are becoming more reactive to issues that are going on in the community. More people are not being proactive in learning about what's going on at council, and they're reacting to what they're hearing 2, 3 days later or even a week later on social media. How important do you find is it for yourself to be proactive in saying, this is what's in front of council right now, guys? Give me your opinion so I can make the best informed decision at that council table. Or are people in your district, your county, okay with you to go ahead? We've elected you to make those tough decisions and then tell us why you've made them afterwards.
Uh, I do a lot of one-on-one conversations with people. If I go to the grocery store and it should be a 5 minute in and out, and it's probably the same grocery store you're talking about. But you know, it should be 5 minutes in and out, and it turns into 45 minutes. I do a lot of one-on-one conversations with people. I always tell people if you hear a rumor, call me. I got nothing to hide. I will tell you the 100% truth to the best of my ability. I can't disclose what we've spoke about in closed meetings or talk about our staff or stuff, personnel. But if it's an issue that people are unhappy about, I've been finding lately that social media is a tool that people have turned to. And it just snowballs from there. You know, I've actually got a few people that will actually say, "Hey, I heard a rumor. I want to know the truth. Can you tell me?"
Good
And
for
then
them.
I tell them like, "Yeah, here, this is what it is. I've seen the rumors as well. Um, I don't like getting into the Facebook fights because people will generally try to twist your words. Um, I would rather, one on one. Let's have a chat, and yeah, like let's not snowball this thing. But what I've also found in the last 8 years on council is that when people are upset about an issue, especially if they're fighting about it on Facebook or whatever social media they choose, they forget actually quick. Uh, Today's problem will in a couple of weeks it'll be forgot about, and then the next problem is out. So there are people out there that actually they thrive on that. They thrive on the drama and the I don't know, I guess the fight on Facebook, and to each their own. If they want to do that, that's fine. But my job is to tell the truth, and I try my absolute best to do that.
I have one last question about the role of council before we turn to MacKenzie County as a whole, but it's a sort of a transition question as well. Now, you represent a district within is it districts in the MacKenzie County? It's districts, right? It's not
We
wards or
we call ourselves wards.
wards. Okay, I apologize. So you
Yeah,
you represent a ward in your the county, which is Fort Vermilion, I
Port
believe,
Port Vermilion, Ward 7.
Ward 7.
Yeah.
But when you're at that council table, you're not Ward 7 Councillor Cameron Cardinal. You are MacKenzie County Councillor Cameron Cardinal. So you have to look at every issue through that MacKenzie County lens. And that means from time to time, Port Vermilion may not get everything it needs every year. How do you see yourself balancing the needs of your community, your ward, with the needs of the entire county? Or do they go hand in hand at the end of the day?
We have a really good council. We're the biggest municipality in Canada as far as the
In
land base
Canada?
goes. Yes, sir.
Oh wow, I did not know that. That was just Alberta, but wow, okay.
Yeah, yeah. We're the largest. We're the size of, I believe, New Brunswick. So we're the size of an Atlantic province as far as the land base goes. But you know, working at the council table, yeah, you're not always going to win. But I'm thankful that we have a council that when issues do come up for Fort Vermilion, they all turn to me and say, "What do you think? How does this? This is going to affect you most." Or we turn to the council for La Crete, or Blumenort, or wherever, Zama, and we say, "This is going to affect you most. What do you think about this?" um and generally they will respect my wishes or my decisions. But when it comes to money being spent on capital projects or whatever, yeah, we just got to live within our means, and our we have a constantly shrinking budget due to whether it's the moratoriums on caribou in the northwest part of our municipality. Um but our tax base seems to be shrinking, and we have to accept the fact that money is tight, and we have to we can't I gotta quote my reeve, we can't spend like drunken sailors anymore.
Sounds like a fun reeve if you ask me.
Yeah.
I, I want to turn to the county as a whole, but before I do this, I just need to preface this line of questioning for 2 seconds. So just bear with me, counselor. This is a conversation between the counselor and myself. This is not a motion of council, not a direction of council, not even a policy of council. This is the counselor's opinion and his opinion alone. Now, it may line up with what's going on at council, but he needs, at the end of the day, a majority of council members to vote in favor or against any issue that is in front of council to make a direction or to repeal any bylaw. So again, this is the counselor's opinion and his opinion alone. Counselor, as of recording this in December 2025, what do you see as the biggest challenge or challenges facing MacKenzie County today?
Oh, we have so many challenges,
So I'll let you
whether
say the top three then.
top three, I would say, is our tax base is shrinking. Uh, the care and it is a direct relation to the moratoriums put in place by our province and our federal government on the protection of caribou. In the northwest corner of Alberta, we used to be one of the biggest um, booming oil and gas industries in the province, and it's pretty much stagnant right now because we can't develop there. And then I guess the third, I guess, issue, and that not just for MacKenzie County, but also for the Indigenous First Nations people that call our land home, is we need more farmland. And how do we balance that so that the farmers can get the land they need, and then the Indigenous culture and practices of our Indigenous people are also protected. So I believe there is a balance. We just got to find that. So I
Can I,
think those are three biggest right now.
I'm going to play in that agriculture one for 2 quick seconds because on McKenzie
Sure.
County website, it boasts that McKenzie County has a thriving arable agricultural industry within the county. So how do you circle that peg? Circle that peg for me for a second. You're saying it's a challenge. We need more farmland, but the county's saying we have this vast industry that is thriving right now. So I'm not trying to put words in your mouth here, but am I reading it wrong, or because you're on the ground, so you know this for on hand? What do you mean by more farmland? Is it we just need more?
Well, yeah, McKenzie County does boast that, and the reason behind that is we have. Eh, I'm not a farmer. I wish I was, but
Welcome to the club. I'm not either. The only thing I know is cows go moo and horses go neigh.
right, right. So we have probably some of the richest farmland in the province, due to the fact that we have extra long growing days in the summer. Some of our oat seed is some of the biggest in the province. Hemp, when it's grown up here, hemp stalks are the tallest and biggest. We have the most organic farmers in the province. I believe it's around 40% are in McKenzie County. Um, but we also have a growing population. In the Crete area, there's a lot of babies being born every year, and they come from a farming background. And if you have more and more families that are in with that background, you need more farmland. Um, but
But
how do we get there?
you specifically mentioned the First Nations connection there, and I would love to
Yeah,
hear more about that if you don't mind. Unless you were getting to that, and I apologize for interrupting.
yeah, no, all good. Yeah, I was planning on getting to that, but yeah. So the there are growing families, and they all can't farm on the same land. If you got if your grandfather started a farm with a couple of quarters, 100 years ago, that same farm has probably grown to 50 quarters by now. And the same people you know, can't sustain themselves on farming the same land. So I totally get it why they would want more farmland. It is it can be a profitable industry, but it also, we're at the mercy of the climate and the weather, right? But the indigenous people, they also want to protect the farmland. You cut down um, the trees, the animals that used to call that plot of land home are gone. But there's also a balance there. If you do it in such a way, you can create some of the best hunting habitat ever. Uh, we don't we don't want to see it look like Saskatchewan, where there's you can watch your dog run away for a week, but at the same time, if we do it properly, protect our water bodies and our streams, and you know, I think everybody can benefit from it if we do it right.
I think every single Saskatchewan listener has just turned off their this episode because either that or they're all going, "Yeah, that's right. That's extremely right. He's got it right, and he's from northern Alberta." I want to
I
though
didn't say
talk.
I didn't just to I didn't say Saskatchewan was bad. I said there's no trees there. But I drove down to Regina a couple of years ago for the FCM conference, and I it was the first time in probably 15 years that I'd taken that route, and I actually looked around, and it's actually some beautiful country there. The rolling hills, and city of Regina is actually quite pretty, actually, if you drive around and take a look.
I would agree wholeheartedly on that one. But I want to
Yeah.
turn back to MacKenzie County, and I want to talk about that second issue that you mentioned, which was the tax base, population dwindling. Now, this is not just a MacKenzie County issue. This is I would say, and I again blanket statement here a little bit, but a large rural issue right now that a lot of people are moving to larger urban centers. Now, MacKenzie County, and I'm trying to do basic math here in my head, is over 700 kilometers away from Edmonton. So that means if you're heading to the big city, you're going to be driving all day because I've driven that Highway 88 from Fort Vermilion all the way to Slave Lake and then all the way down to Edmonton a few times in my life. And I can tell you, it is mundane. It is one of those roads that you go, okay, another few hours. With the dwindling tax base that you're seeing, how do you offset that with the challenges that you're seeing in caribou with agriculture? Is the viability of MacKenzie County still there, or is the tax base needing an injection and help from the province and federal government?
Well, it's a loaded question. Um,
Okay, then
we're
can I
filled
ask
with
this
nothing.
question?
Yes, sir.
What would drive people to move to say, and I'm just picking your community because you're literally parked in it right now. What would make people want to move to Fort Vermilion to invest in the industry and the economy of Fort Vermilion and then at greater lengths, MacKenzie County?
Yeah, I was just going to say, McKenzie County as a whole, we are filled with nothing but opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, the potential for Fort Vermilion to we're never going to have 10,000 people living here. I don't believe that. But if we capitalize on tourism for Fort Vermilion, I believe we can have 25,000, 50,000 people rolling through Fort Vermilion every summer and winter, through our nonprofit groups or through certain events. The city of Yellowknife has 20,000 people living there. There's 220,000 people go there every year. And that's because, they don't want to live there, but they want to see it. And I believe if we do our part for Fort Vermilion, promote it through tourism, I think we can achieve those goals. But as McKenzie County as a whole, yeah, we're filled with nothing but opportunity here.
Do
If
you
we
see
if
businesses
the
wanting to set up there?
I do, we've got, if we can get those moratoriums lifted, we've been fighting that and proving, depending on who you ask, we've been proving the province wrong about the caribou. Uh, their reason, I guess, for putting the moratoriums on, through the Northwest Species at Risk, which I'm on the committee as well. Um, you know, they say caribou can't thrive, in a forested or an area that's burnt out by a fire. We've proven that wrong. Caribou they don't live where oil and gas is, and we got pictures of, and I used to be in the or work in the oil and gas, and we've chased caribou off of oil field leases because they're standing there grazing, and we're trying to work. Um, we
So,
proved that,
so when was the
caribou,
moratorium put in, if you don't mind me asking? Because I don't remember exactly what year that was put in. Was it just a few years ago, or was it just recently?
I believe that was 2013.
So this was way before the UCP and NDP in their current iterations. This was back in the, if I'm doing
Yes.
basic math here, right, the Stelmach / Redford era.
I believe it was. Yeah, it was long
Okay.
before I was on council. Northwest Species at Risk was started in 2016.
Okay. So then I'm going to flip the original, flip a little bit here and say, hypothetically, big hypothetical question here,
Yeah.
Councillor, coming your way. Danielle Smith wakes up tomorrow morning and says, "You know what? I really like that Councillor Cardinal from MacKenzie County. I'm going to do that thing for him and I'm going to remove the moratorium on caribou." What would that mean for MacKenzie County?
Honestly, I love Danielle Smith. I think she's a true fighter for our province. I just got to say that it's actually not her. It's more the federal government and the United Nations that got this moratorium in place.
Okay.
Uh,
So then the then
and
the
just
the
trickles down.
addition to the question then is Mark Carney wakes up tomorrow morning and
Yeah,
says, "I really
yeah,
like what I heard on that Cross Border Network podcast. I'm going to do one thing for him is overturn that." What would it mean?
yeah. It would mean the doors are wide open. I've said it to Danielle Smith before. Alberta's open for business except MacKenzie County. We need to open the door. Um, it I could see things booming the way it used to be, like the town of High Level, town of Rainbow Lake. We had a meeting with our tri-council between MacKenzie County, town of High Level, and town of Rainbow Lake. I was actually saddened to hear that the population of Rainbow Lake has gone from, I believe, 1,800 to just over 400 people, and that's because people can't do business anymore. So I would see places like the town of High Level, town of Rainbow Lake booming again. There was a time when in High Level, when the oil and gas was booming, that you couldn't get a hotel anywhere in town because the oil companies and the logging companies had the hotels booked up for a year in advance. Small businesses would thrive. There's all kinds of opportunities for small businesses. Overnight stays, the Airbnbs, the overnight cabin stays. Our nonprofit groups would thrive because the events and certain public venues that they host or look after, such as our rec facilities, would thrive because people there'd be more people with money. Sadly, the world does revolve around the almighty dollar, and we have to chase that. Otherwise, we're going to be twiddling our thumbs, and we can't do that, especially when we have all kinds of opportunity. Like it's not just the oil and gas. There's the logging, the farming, our retail sectors would thrive. um would Fort Vermilion ever get to that 10,000 people? I don't think so. But the small businesses that we do have in Fort Vermilion would be they'd be doing quite well.
We are in the end of 2025. Do you have a good outlook on MacKenzie County, even with the sort of feeling of being stuck between a rock and a hard place right now? Because you can't do things because the federal government and the province isn't letting you. You're a booming community with a thriving agriculture, a thriving tourism industry, but it seems like you're in this weird transition period right now where if things don't change, things could get worse. Am I reading that wrong, or am I up creek without a paddle?
Well, growing up in the north and the knowing a lot of people up here, we've come accustomed to adapting. I don't think, I don't believe we'll ever go to zero.
Yeah.
I know I see more people wanting to live in the north than move away. Um, so we just got to adapt, and we're good at that. We're good at doing that as a council. We got a really good council right now. We want to work together. We want to work with our neighboring municipalities. Um, and yeah, we just need to adapt and grow. And we're good at that.
we often only talk about the negative things that are going on in communities because, again, that's what sells newspapers, that's what sells media. But I want to change that a little bit on this show, and I want to talk about what goes right. So, what is the thing you were proud of when it comes to MacKenzie County? And you can even localize it if you want. What is the thing you're proud of when it comes to your Ward 7 of Fort Vermilion?
Well, it's that's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up because in 2020 or 2018 we were hit with a flood. Uh, North Vermilion, also known as Buttertown, flooded. Quite a few homes got destroyed uh, and rebuilt. And then to a small extent on the south side of the river where Fort Vermilion is we also flooded, but not no significant damage. Our cemetery, one of our cemeteries suffered damage. My property, thankfully, I didn't have a house on there, flooded. And then a couple of my neighbors, but no real damage. And then everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people were like, oh, that's the one in 100-year flood. Well, 2020 came along and that was the big one. We flooded severely. Several homes were damaged beyond repair. A few businesses got hit hard. But I've after the initial shock wears off, that man, we flooded. I I wasn't home. We all got evacuated when it flooded. We some got evacuated to Crete and some to high level, but it was during a pandemic of COVID, and I don't really want to talk too much about COVID, but we're past that. But I got stuck on the wrong side of the river. Because of the flood, the river was closed, or the bridge was closed. So I was gone for 5 days while my hometown was flooding. So when I got home, I or was able to get back across the river. I snuck in and I went to my house to see if my house flooded. And thankfully, it didn't. The river stopped about 8 feet away from my basement windows. But after that initial shock wears off, um, then reality sets in. What are we going to do? Um, but I'm always optimistic. There's good in everything. If you look at every community that has suffered fire, flood, tornadoes, they always seem to come out better, and that's largely due to we've got a great we live in the best province in the country. And thankfully we have a provincial government that's willing to step up for those in need. And we met with Jason Kenney, the premier at the time, and a few of his ministers, and I said, this is the worst thing to hit Fort Vermilion in 84 years, but with your help, and if we all stick together, this can be the best thing that happens to Fort Vermilion in 84 years. So we need your help. And I think, I don't know the exact number, but there was 144 homes that were affected and a few businesses. Um, and we're able to move all, but I think we have 12 homes left to move. And we built subdivisions. We built more subdivisions in 4 years than most development companies do in 15 years. But we're moving in the right direction. Um,
If there,
Fort Vermilion is different. Sorry, yeah,
I was going to say
yeah.
it
Fort
take.
Vermilion is different, but it's going to be better.
I remember I came to Slave Lake because I used to work there after the wildfires in 2010, and what you're saying is so reminiscent of 5 years after the fires in Slave Lake. Unfortunately, and I say this respectfully, it takes a crisis to see the true meaning of community when people rally around
Yeah,
each other and get together. And put down that petty politics of being on social media and yelling at people and fighting over the Hatfields and McCoys type of generational conflicts and say, okay, no, my neighbor is in trouble. I'm going to help out and I'm going to lend a hand. It sounds like truly Fort Vermilion and to a larger extent MacKenzie County surrounded themselves around the people of your ward and embrace them and saying, you know what, even if you are from Fort Vermilion, I'm from High Level or Rainbow Lake or even further south down south in MacKenzie County, we're going to support you through this troubling time because that's what true neighbors and community does.
And that's exactly what people did. We had people come from all over, from Crete. A lot of people from Crete dropped what they're doing to come and help clean up. And a flood is it's not fun. A fire, yeah, everything's burnt. You push it all into a pile and you haul it away. A flood is so much different. It's such a mess. You got personal belongings that you have that people are going through and trying to help, you know, clean up, but also salvage. Um, but yeah, no, we had so many people that dropped what they're doing to come out and help people. They put their lives on hold so that, the people that basically lost most, if not everything, you know, they showed that they cared. And we truly appreciated everything that people from all over did. Like we had truckloads of donations come from all the way from Calgary and Lethbridge. People loaded up trailers and drove them out of the goodness of their heart. We had a company out of Yellowknife load up an airplane full of, I believe it was baby supplies, and flew it here on their own dime. It makes you feel good that people in our province and our municipality and our neighboring, you know, towns and cities, they actually truly care, and that's what we do in the north. We look out for each other.
Currently do. I want to turn to my last segment because I'm cautious of time and I did not realize we've already hit the 40-minute mark and I told you 40 minutes and we're at the 40 minutes mark,
So,
but I
hey,
have two.
I'm all good. I enjoy
That's
this.
good. So I have two last questions and well, a few last questions actually, but the one I want to start with is my favorite subject. And we talked about it briefly for a few seconds, but I want to dive into it a little bit more if you don't mind.
Sure.
I think tourism is the thing that municipalities need to do a better job at doing in this province and in this country. I think we all have hidden gems. I talked about that riverfront that Fort Vermilion has. It is a hidden gem in this province that we need more people to go visit. For a counselor, for yourself, for someone who's on the ground, what are some of the other hidden gems that people need to see if they come see MacKenzie County this summer, which is going to be in a few months because we're in December and a lot of people are going to be driving. Unless they are, then good for you. But what can people do in MacKenzie County that you want people to know about?
Oh, there's so many things. There's a lot of people that don't even know what the boreal forest actually looks like. You know, I I I challenge somebody to stand on the edge of a highway or a road on the edge of the boreal forest and start running in one direction, and let's see how far you can get in there. People don't actually understand how dense it is. I was down in Grand Cache, and looking, it's beautiful there, but it's so different. You got trees growing, 20, 30 feet apart, and there's not a whole lot of underbrush underneath. But the boreal forest is so different. It's so dense, and I don't believe a lot of people really know that or can see that. So that's one thing. It's all around us. You came up Highway 88, and it's like, how do you live in so many trees, right? Um, we also have one hidden gem that people. I would say there's a very small percentage of the population of even MacKenzie County and even Fort Vermilion that haven't seen, and that is the Vermilion Chutes on the Peace River. It's downstream. I've only seen it from the air, and I lived here my whole life. Um, if you get on a quad, it's about an hour quad ride, but you got to cross. the Wabasca River, and you can only get across on the quad when the river's low. But it's the widest falls in Canada. But very few people have ever seen that. The bison up in Zama, wild
Oh,
bison. You know, it
you're making me want to come
you
back to
want
MacKenzie County this summer, there, counselor.
yeah, the wild bison up in Zama. Go up, take a drive up there. They're right on the side of the road. Don't go when it's either first thing in the morning or just a sun setting, because you can't see them. They're the size of a truck, and you don't see them until your truck is almost hitting them.
Ooh.
Uh, and the farmland. I had my next door neighbors. They were from Nigeria. They spent a few years in Dubai, and then they moved to Calgary, and then up to Fort Vermilion. And they're like, I asked one of their boys, what do you like about here? They're like, the farms. There's no farms in Calgary. Like, oh, I've never thought of that. But a lot of people have never visited a farm. A lot of people think their T-bone steak comes from the grocery store. Well, you got to actually visit a farm to actually truly understand, where it comes from. We have some amazing farmers up here that farm, upwards of 700,000 head of cattle. And then the farmland itself, how vast it is. If you go up to the Buffalo Head Tower, which has a lookout, the tower itself is a fire lookout, but we look after and maintain a lookout that looks out over from the Buffalo Head Hills looking north, and it's nothing but farmland that you see. And it is a bit of a contradiction to what I said earlier, but we are huge. MacKenzie County is massive as far as the landmass goes. It takes, from the southernmost entrance into MacKenzie County, I believe it takes through 4 hours to get to the northernmost, which is the Northwest Territories border. And then if you go east to west, I believe it's another 3 hours to get from BC border, just west of Rainbow Lake, to the Wood Buffalo National Park to the east. So, we're massive. So that in itself is something neat that, you can drive for 2 hours and not see a town.
The one thing I will mention to anyone who is thinking about visiting MacKenzie County, if you're driving on Highway 88, unless it's changed in the last few years, but be sure to download as much as possible around music, because the cell phone reception is a little spotty in some places, especially once you leave Red Earth Creek. That's just my own personal mention
You
there.
know,
Go ahead.
I've driven that road so many times. I know exactly where my cell phone service cuts off. Uh, but living up here, I actually enjoy those rides. I enjoy that 7 hour ride to Edmonton. Um, I don't mind the 2 hours of silence. I've since picked up a Starlink, and I do have cell service the whole way now. But you know, a part of me enjoys that the tranquility of being by yourself, and you know, nobody's going to bother you for those 2 hours.
That's true. That is very true. So my final question for you, counselor, and it's the all-important one. It's the $1 million question. And you can take as long as you want to answer this or as short as amount of time as you want to answer this. In your
Sure.
opinion, what makes MacKenzie County such a great place to live, to work, and to raise a family?
You know, uh, the yeah, that's a great question, and it can be spun so many different ways. Um, my daughter she was in grade 2, and she had to do an interview with one of the seniors in our community, and he asked her, "What do you like about Fort Vermilion?" And she said, "It's safe." Um, my neighbor that I mentioned from Nigeria, he said he is overwhelmed that his kids can actually play in the streets till 11 o'clock at night in the middle of June. The sun doesn't set for very long in the middle of June up here, and I love that. We have so much opportunity. Whether it's tourism, farming, oil and gas, if that ever comes back, and I can't say it. I will never say that it won't ever come back. It's going to come back. Somebody's going to open their eyes and say, enough is enough. The caribou moratorium's got to be lifted. And then once that happens, there's people that are sitting outside the fence just waiting to jump in. It's beautiful here. You can't even explain the beauty of, doesn't matter if it's a snowstorm or minus 40 or 50 below weather, or the morning sunrise or sunset on the edge of the Peace River, flowing through Fort Vermilion or on the edge of Fort Vermilion. You can't even explain the beauty of it. It's I guess it's something we also take for granted, that very few people get to wake up and see that beauty. I'm actually looking at the piece right now, and it's beautiful, even though it's snow covered and the snow is starting to come down. We're such a adaptable people. The people up here are what make this place special. It doesn't matter if you're living in Crete, Fort Vermilion, Zama, or any of the First Nations reserves or Métis settlement. We're all so unique. We adapt to all the changes. It's we're just different, I guess. A lot of people be like, you're crazy for wanting to live in the north. It's so cold, and it is. But our summers are breathtaking. You can wake up in the morning and it could be 0, beginning of June. And then it's 30 degrees in the afternoon and the sun doesn't set until 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night. It's so unique that very few people, when in the grand scheme of our province, which has, a few million people living in it, and we've got, 30,000 people living within our borders, including our First Nations. It's a small percentage of people that get to experience it, but it's the people that also make it great. And I'm proud to be reelected. I'm happy to be reelected, and to continue for the next 4 years to represent my hometown. I'm just going to carry on and do the best I can. I just got to tell you a little story before we close, because I wanted to let my daughter know that I was going to tell a story. But before the election, I was pretty stressed out, and she said, "Dad, why are you so stressed out? Is it because of the money that you're going to lose?" I said, no. I said, if I don't get reelected, I'll just go get another job. I'm not worried about money, and I'll probably make a lot more money than I do as a counselor. I said, but I got so many plans for our municipality and for our town, our home, that, if we get the wrong people in there or the wrong person in there, it's going to ruin it all. And my daughter, Daisy, she said, now I get it. It's kind of like making a salad. You put all this good stuff in there, all this fresh vegetables, and you think it's great. Then you put the wrong spice in, and it ruins everything. So I thank her for that analogy, and I think that's the perfect analogy.
So I know I said that was my last question, but I have to follow up on that for just 1 second.
Sure.
At the beginning of this interview, you said you're not a politician. You're a local community advocate. I'm paraphrasing here for a second. Looking back on the last 8 years, looking back on your journey into this world of municipal politics and the work that you have done, Are you happy of where you are right now and where MacKenzie County is because of the work you've done?
Well, like I said, we've had to adapt. Um, it didn't all go as planned. We
Nothing ever
had
does.
no, like when I first got in as a counselor, my goal was to make Fort Vermilion to more beautiful than it already is. I wanted to enhance what we had. I wasn't able to do that in the first 8 years, or very little I was able to do. Um, for Fort Vermilion and for MacKenzie County, we've had so many disasters. When I first got elected, it was, I believe it was the it was the first year, and I'm like, the first year you're basically you're learning the ropes of being a counselor. You're learning what you can and cannot do, and what you should say and what you shouldn't say, and you're basic everything you've learned as a worker, I guess, working, listening to the boss, so to speak. It all changes as a counselor. It's so different. So you learn that in your first year, and then after the first year, I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I can see myself doing this for a long time. I'm actually enjoying this. Then it was right after Christmas, I got a call from our CAO, and he said, "Cam, we got a call, a soul." So what is that? What is a soul? He said, "It's a state of local emergency." I said, "Well, for what?" He said, "We have a gas shortage in Crete. It's too cold, and the pressure of the gas is going down, and people's homes are going to freeze up." And a lot did. I believe there was about 20 that their homes completely froze up because they couldn't start their furnace. After that, it was one after another. Fires. We had evacuations. I canceled the FCM conference in 2019 because of I was working in the evacuation center. The First Nations. I was Chate, the Denetau, and town of High Level got evacuated because of the chuck egg fire. And then after that, it was just fire after fire, flooding. You know, COVID. Throw COVID in there. And it hasn't stopped. We had evacuations. The community of Fox Lake was evacuated twice. Once in 2023 and again in 2024. Um, if I don't see another state of local emergency, it's not going to hurt my feelings. But the the good thing is, and I got a huge shout out to MacKenzie County's administration, is we're good at it. We're getting so good at it. Um, we know what we're capable of
The
doing.
one thing you should never be known for is not a thing that you should be known for, but it's good to be known for that because it does seem
Yes,
like MacKenzie County seems to be under a lot of pressures, and hopefully the next 4 years does not exacerbate those pressures.
right. Yeah, yeah, and you know, you get good at doing at something from doing it over and over. Practice makes perfect, and we don't choose to have these disasters happen, but they happen, and I'm proud to say, and I can confidently say we're ready. If it floods again, we know what we're going to do. If we have another fire and another evacuation, we know what we're going to do. We know how to do it, and our administration and our staff, they're 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 amazing. They're a great team to work with, and our council is also, we got a good team right now, and I hope we can work together uh, closely and come up with solutions and work with what we've got, and yeah, just move forward.
Counselor, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for doing this. This has honestly probably been the highlight of my week so far, chatting with
Oh,
you.
thank you.
You always learn so much. I always have so much respect for people who want to sit down and chat with me, but who are so passionate about their communities as you are, and so open to having an honest conversation. So, Cam, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for doing this. This has been an honest to goodness pleasure, and I'm so happy, Counselor Wardley told you to reach out to me because I think this was a great conversation. I hope people who are listening to this and watching this at future dates learned a little bit more about MacKenzie County from you. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and you're very welcome. And yeah, hope we don't have to talk about a disaster in the future. But if you ever want to chat again, I'd be more than willing to do that.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Cross Border Interviews. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's episode and gained some valuable insights into the world of municipal politics in the province of Alberta. For those who have been listening and watching over the last year, we want to thank you so much for your continued support. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button now so you never miss an upcoming episode. And we'll be taking the month off in January for the Cross Border Interviews. We'll be back in February with brand new episodes. So don't miss our last few episodes of the year and our brand new season 9, starting in February. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we will be back with a brand new episode of Cross Border Interviews shortly.